Our next segment is 3 to Try, where we give you, 3 to try. And this week's topic is 3 hikes to great views. So we're going to give you 3 hikes to great views. If you're only in the White Mountains for a short time, looking for something to really knock your socks off, kind of a signature experience, these are 3 to try. And we're going to start with one that is one of the signature ones. I think it's classified as it's an easier hike, but it is still a hike.
It's still long.
Yes, it's not super long. In fact, a lot
Depends how fast you go.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think for a lot of experienced hikers, they consider it a short hike.
Yes.
And people who are new hikers, beginners, when they first start, they're like, "This is harder than I thought," because you are going pretty, straight uphill for a distance. I think it's a couple miles, perhaps.
Yes, it takes, I want to say it took about 45 minutes.
Yeah, which isn't that long as hikes go. You can obviously do that in a morning or an afternoon, but the payoff is spectacular. And we're talking about Mount Willard. The trailhead starts in Crawford Notch, or just above Crawford Notch, behind Crawford Notch Train Depot, and it's pretty much a straight shot. It actually, at one point, was a bridle path. They took up horses, so it's kind of a lot of trails in the White Mountains are they're zigzag. They're what do you call it, Hans? What do you call that?
Zigzag.
Switchback.
I'll call it a serpentine.
Switchback.
Bridle switchback.
Yeah, switchback was the word I was looking for. So a lot of the trails are switchback in the White Mountains because it's too hard to just march straight up a mountain. But this trail is actually a little bit straighter than normal.
It seems it's very direct. There's not a lot of...
You get to the top and you look back over Crawford Notch, and it is a spectacular view. And any of the kids who were whining on the way up will be like, "Whoa, this is cool," and it'll get them excited to hike again.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you've done that before.
It a couple times.
Yeah.
In fall, in summer. It's a good time, and it's good to have lunch at the top too.
Yeah.
There's a pretty big area.
Now it is a cliff up top, so you've got to be careful with pets and young kids and everything else. But it is safe if you keep your distance away from the extreme edge.
Yeah, and I've done it, so it means it's not too bad.
Anytime someone asks me for, a shorter hike with a great view payoff, this is the one that I recommend. It will get you huffing and puffing a little bit, though. The next one that we're going to recommend is a little bit more difficult in challenge. It's South Moat, which is right to the west of North Conway. The Moat Ridge is the beautiful ridge that you see that kind of defines the Mount Washington Valley on the west-hand side.
Right in the middle.
The trailhead for South Moat is off Passaconaway Road, off of West Side Road, so it's fairly easy to get to from North Conway. And it is a challenging hike. It'll probably take you a couple of hours, but the view is 360. You have a view of the ridge towards Mount Washington in the distance and the rest of the presidentials. You have a view to the west. You have a view to the east, which is down into the valley of North Conway, and it's spectacular. And even to the south, you can see Mount Shakurawa and some of the lakes like Silver Lake, and so it's absolutely stunning. And if you wanted to extend that to a really challenging hike, you could actually hike all the way across the ridge to North Moat.
Yes, I've heard.
And down there to Diana's Baths. If you probably would want to park a second car at the Diana's Baths trailhead.
To reverse the whole thing would take a bit,
So that is a beautiful view. And number 3, this is I'm going to call it intermediate. It's Zcliff. So this, you're going to access this via the Zealand Trail, which is located kind of west of Bretton Woods. It is at there's actually a Zealand recreation area that you can go. You can park a car there. The hike to the AMC Zealand hut is very easy. It's actually the easiest AMC hut to hike to. And once you get there, there are beautiful views into the Zealand Valley. It's very nice. But once you go beyond that, it gets fairly steep. You are going to be huffing and puffing. And eventually you'll get to a spur trail called the Zcliff Trail. And it just extends out a little bit to this amazing view of the Zealand Valley. It looks back towards, I believe, Mount Carrigan. And it is just one of the most spectacular views and vistas that I have seen in the White Mountains. So it's not it's not a super long hike. If you go past that, you can actually reach the top of Zealand Mountain, which is a 4,000 footer. There's another spur that goes off there, but you got to be careful because the trail does continue on all the way over the
You
bonds.
just keep going by accident.
It is one of the longest trails, in the White Mountains, taking you into the Pemi Wilderness, potentially all the way across the wilderness to Lincoln Woods. So,
Don't do that.
yeah. So, but if you're looking for an out and back, the Zcliff Trail is well worth it.
Okay.
Very, very beautiful. Let's check in with our director, Hans, who's been pushing the buttons in the back. We haven't checked in with you yet, Hans. Hans, what do you think of those 3? Have you done any of those?
Yes, you just reminded me that well, your description of Zcliff, I have to get back to it. I remember I did an article many years ago on it, but you reminded me I got to get back out there. Maybe I missed something, or the weather. So it sounds like I haven't been there in a while.
Yeah, that is always, one of the issues is weather. So you have to hit it right sometimes. Zcliff would be, if it's hazy, because I have been there a couple times, and on a hazy day, it can be socked in and the view is not as impressive. But if you get there on a clear day with good visibility, the mountains just seem to stretch forever. Early morning is good because the sun is lower in the sky, and it's just spectacular. It's just, you feel like there's this little outcropping of rock, and you feel like you're just above this amazing wilderness. So there you go. That's 3 to try. And we actually have another 3 to try segment coming up. 3 hidden gem restaurants in the White Mountains.